everyone. We are so glad you could join us today for what's going to be a really great discussion. So the focus today is going to be living with an ostomy. But a quick introduction, my name is Alexis Moberger, and I am with The Patient Story. So just some background on The Patient Story. We are a platform that does in-depth storytelling with cancer patients and caregivers. We also speak with top specialists in the field to bring the latest and most up-to-date information when it comes to breakthrough treatments and also promising treatments. Today, though, we are co-hosting this live discussion with Colon Town. Colon Town has about 130 private Facebook groups, and they have colorectal that really caters to colorectal cancer patients and caregivers. So really excited to have them collaborate with us tonight. But also to mention our amazing panelists tonight, we have three. We have two colorectal cancer patient advocates. We have Jason Randall and Amy Hart. And we also have Dr. Vanessa Wookey with Fox Chase Cancer Center. So really to get things started off, I would like to just toss it over to Jason. If you could give us a quick introduction, introduce yourself to know a little bit more about you and your story. And also I'd just like to say welcome.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm Jason Randall. I'm a stage 4 colorectal cancer survivor. Next month here in July will be my 5th year into this experience. My first introduction to an ostomy was back in 2020 after I had a 12-hour surgery at City of Hope in California, and I was given a temporary ileostomy. I had that for about 3 months, and then I was reversed, and then I had another surgery, an APR, due to a reoccurrence that happened in my tailbone, which required more chemo and more radiation, but an APR ultimately got rid of my cancer in that area, which was great. But it left me with a permanent ostomy, colostomy. So I've had kind of experience on both sides of the house there. There's a lot to take in when you first get an ostomy, a lot of not necessarily anger. I think some people do get that, but a lot of, what do you call it? The unknown. You don't know what to expect with it. And I hope that some of the stuff that we show you today can really help ease some of people's anxieties and fears that they may have with those stuff. So kind of what I'm going to start with is like some of the different bags that people can have with an ostomy. Ileostomies tend to have more of an open bag because you have a lot more output from an ileostomy due to where it's coming from your small bowel instead of going anywhere within the large bowel. So people typically with those, they use do a show and tell here. They do a, let's see, like an open-ended bag that's drainable is what they're called. And they're usually, there's two types. There's a 1-piece and a 2-piece. A 2-piece or a 1-piece looks kind of like this. It's just got your adhesive and you just cut it to the size of your stoma, peel it off, and then you put it on and you can wrap it up and seal it. And every time you go, you have stool, you drain it. And they tend to be, some of the issues more with ileostomies are dehydration, stuff like that. And so it's constantly kind of coming, so to speak. I remember constantly having like little leaks here and there, trying to tweak it as I went. Another one is like a convex bag with the drainable. Those are really good for people that kind of have like an innie is what you want to call it. Their stoma doesn't protrude out as much and it kind of helps push down on the skin to pop it out. When it comes to, and then there's also 2-piece bags to where it's like a flange type system that you basically put over and then you attach a bag to it. And there's also, for ileostomies, people tend to use the open-ended bags. That's exclusively what I used. I used a one-piece drainable bag when I had an ileostomy. I was kind of scared to go to the 2-piece, but when I ended up getting my colostomy bag, I started off with the 2-piece system and I loved it. And what those look like you can still do a closed or a drainable bag with your colostomy as well, but the output's a lot thicker. And so sometimes it's a lot harder to drain it. And so what they have is they have one or closed systems. And there's kind of the same thing with that. It's a flange system, and then you connect that to this, and then this is more of a changed as needed. I've kind of switched it all up, and I personally now use a 1-piece closed system that I change as needed. It's basically, this is it. and I just take this off every time I change as I need, and I put that on, and then I'm done. People tend to use hair rings, which is one of our questions coming up. It's use this to kind of protect leaks and stuff like that. With the one-piece closed system, it completely eliminates the use. I've found it a lot easier to deal with that. So, other things that kind of come in handy when dealing with ostomies and like keeping stuff under control is like using wraps. You got these wrap systems that you just basically wear around yourself. They have pockets in it. Can be used for both colostomies and ileostomies. There's also for people that are more active, there's like what we call a stealth belt. It's got this, see a little hole here, kind of hard to see on that, but there's a little hole that oh, here we go. Let me get this set up right real quick. All right, there we go. So there's this hole where your either your flange or your whole pouch goes in, depending on what type of system you use. And you put this on, and you basically would wear it like this. I use it because I swim to work out. And so this thing is great because not only does it keep it kind of in place and secure, this one also acts as a hernia belt, which is a big concern when you have a peristomal hernia. It's basically, you run the risk after cutting in through the abdominal wall to herniate a lot easier. And then another system I use for more impactful events, like playing with my children or soccer, stuff like that they like to do, is called a stomaplex. And what this is, it's a little stoma guard that's fitted to where you can put it over your stoma, like right here. And then you put this belt on there, and it's also a hernia belt. And so if, like, say I'm playing baseball with my son, he throws the ball too fast and I miss it and it hits my stoma, it's not going to damage that, which could be pretty bad if it impacted. And so basically it's an impact guard. And there's other stuff called stoma dome, this one's a stomaplex. There's just all sorts of products out there to help people kind of deal with living with an ostomy and build confidence along the way as well. So let's see here. So yeah, there's just a lot to talk about with an ostomy. And so I think what we got is questions, right? So we've got one of the questions that we had pre-submitted was, what are the psychological coping strategies for living with an ostomy bag? Dr. Wookey, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. I think kind of some of the biggest things that I kind of recommend to patients, because it is a real scary thing to hear about, is I do recommend kind of support groups or, finding people who have gone through this to really kind of help with tips. Because even though, I have patients with this and I can give some tips, really the best thing that patients want is someone who can really help them day to day and figure out kind of some of the troubleshooting and find out people who have kind of worked through this and are helping with that. We also kind of, we have a lot of wound and ostomy nurses that can really kind of help with some of the things as well.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I work for Town, and we're a group of 130 groups on Facebook, and it's quite amazing what you can learn from your peers that are dealing with the same disease or just ostomy. We have a special Stoma City group, we call it, one for if people happen to get reversed. And it's really helpful to ask people questions and be able to dive into some of the more like in-depth stuff that you may think of at the time of an appointment or something, that it's kind of always on, so to speak. And that has been really good. I totally agree with that.
Too, Amy, and we'll get a little bit more into your background and your story, but, if you'd like to add anything with this too on this topic when it comes to
I think you're spot on, Dr. Wookey. It's having people, seeing others who are living with this is really powerful. I think that's a great first step for anyone who's just trying to digest the news that they're going to live with an ostomy. There's just something about knowing you're not alone, and something that really can allow you to build a slight foundation, and then you can work yourself from there. Just seeing other people, maybe 4 years down the road allows you in either right after surgery or prior to surgery to see your life, what it could look like after this, which is a massive change. I try not to talk negatively about it, but it's a shock to any person who's ever been told they're going to have an ostomy.
I think also another good psychological coping strategy is knowing that you may not find the right system right away. It took me trial and error, looking at different systems, and what one person may work well for them may not work for another person, or even the same company, because some of these companies use different adhesives. And on that note, reaching out to all the three big ones in the US, at least, Coloplast, Hollister, and Convatec, reaching out to they'll give you free samples if you write them or go to their website, and they're great about sending you samples. Some of them will connect you with a rep that will be like, hey, what's your situation? What's your stoma? Is it an outie? Is it an innie? Is it flush or does it stick out? They help work with your situation to find what works for you, because there's just so many different things out there that can help you. And I think that's huge in the psychological coping realm, because once you get that confidence of like, oh, this is going to work for me, then it makes things a lot easier knowing that am I going to go out today and crap my shirt? No.
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts. Exactly, were that when it becomes normal and not an imposition on your life, and you're just living day to day, you realize how manageable it actually is. If you have a system that's failing you, that's going to feel much more overwhelming. It's going to feel like it's deteriorating your life. And I, literally just had a post the other day where I said there are no awards for the most uncomfortable ostomy. Don't be uncomfortable in the system you're in. If the adhesive is irritating your skin, try other bags, try something new. I drug my feet on that personally, and caused myself a lot more pain than I needed to, which always impacts our psychological standings.
Well, and even if you find a system that works for you, I was using a two-piece closed system for a long time. And then through my buddy Wes, at one of the Colon Club meetups we had, he showed me a different system, a one-piece closed. And I've been on that ever since after I made the switch. I was just like, this is so much easier. I have less product to deal with, simplifying can help too.
We are ostomy twins, because that is exactly why I switched my bag. A fellow ostomy, one of my greatest friends that I've made through this whole community, she said, "Why are you using that bag?" And I said, "I don't know," after complaining about it. And I tried hers, and what do you know? It worked out great. So same thing. So that's why I'm always pushing talk to other ostomates. See, even if you don't personally talk to them, review what they're using, see if it's something that might help the problems that you're having with your bag.
Thank you both so much for really going into that. And I think from here really quickly, Amy, if you want to give a little bit of an introduction and background about your story.
My name's Amy Hart. I am a 38-year-old mom of 2 young girls. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm a stage 3B colorectal cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in 2019. Just after my 34th birthday. I was not expecting to undergo massive shift in my life like this, but now 3 years later, I am living with an ostomy and living a very active, normal life. I spend a lot of time speaking in the social media space about this very, mundane, but also complex life that I live with an ostomy, to help others see that it is something you can definitely live with. Maybe you didn't envision this for your life, but there are tools to help you make this, it just becomes part of your normal life. I had a long surgery as well, 9.5 hours. And I am also I have a permanent ileostomy, which is just a slight change from the colostomy. I have my small intestine coming out of my abdomen rather than my large intestine, and my ostomy bag attaches that way. I also use a drainable bag because I am emptying my bag multiple times throughout the day. But again, it's become part of my normal life. I also was diagnosed with Lynch syndrome, which is a genetic condition, and part of why I ended up with cancer so young. So I encourage people, along with anyone who's a colorectal cancer survivor or cancer survivor in general, or somebody who has cancer in their family, to get genetic testing. I'm a big advocate for that. But otherwise, just trying to share that living with an ostomy is not only very much possible, it becomes as normal, beautiful, tough, complicated, emotional, all of the things that life was before you had an ostomy.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Amy. And also, one thing that we were talking even about before we started our live discussion is, you've just done a great job of showing, with fashion and clothing. And that's really with our next question that we got, a pre-submitted question, is what clothing do you recommend for women living with an ostomy?
Absolutely. I think before I had an ostomy, I enjoyed putting together outfits and fashion being a part of my life, or just enjoying getting dressed and feeling confident, as a lot of women do. And I kind of had to shift my mindset with the ostomy. At first, I was really afraid and worried that I would live in sweatpants for the rest of my life. And that's just not the case. Things actual suggestions I give to women are: look for high-waisted jeans, specifically paper bag style jeans, where they're kind of high and loose at the top. That's a great way to wear your ostomy. It's very fashionable, and you can find these things everywhere. I also love wearing skirts and dresses. It was one thing that in the beginning of having my ostomy, I was really reluctant to do. Found that wearing bike shorts under my skirts and dresses was something that made me feel more secure. Also kind of gave me the confidence that if I did have a leak or anything, I had an additional layer between me and the dress and the ground. I also really believe in stretchy materials. Make sure your jeans are not skin tight, because that's going to put a lot of pressure on your ostomy and potentially give you a leak. So I like to size up in my jeans. I just go one size higher. They're a little looser at the top, and I feel like I can still wear things that are fashionable, trendy, that I can find anywhere, Target, on Amazon, whatever. But I just like to size up. Some ostomates have suggested to me buying maternity jeans or shorts, because it does give you that extra bit of stretch, and it's just something I haven't tried myself, but sounds like a great way to give yourself room to stretch with your bag. But I pretty much wear all of the things that I wore before, with those slight tweaks. Other things I suggest are to wear what makes you most comfortable, because I know it makes me feel good. But everyone's going to find that on their own. Try new things. Don't be afraid to try something and say, that wasn't for me. I don't like that. My ostomy is too low, too high. Everyone has a personal preference when it comes to where their pants lie, but just try different things. And I'm going to get me a stealth belt, because I didn't even know that maybe that was something that I could use, but I think I'm going to get one of those. So thank you, Jason, for that suggestion too.
Yeah, and it's so I use it for swimming, because I swim about 3 to 4 times a week. That was one thing I was worried about, was, am I going to be able to swim still? Because I used to be a runner, but after having 2 major open surgeries, running is probably just not the best choice anymore. So I choose to swim. But this wrap thing that I have, I use this out in public too. Is like, I go out like on a date with my wife. I have a wife and 3 kids. I forgot to mention. And so I use these as just kind of like something to wear to keep things in place, because sometimes, as it fills up, or gets gassy. That's one thing, disadvantage I have with having the closed system, is I can't burp it, or I can't get rid of the air in it. And so it kind of keeps it closer to my skin, which makes me feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more confident. And I just don't I wear the wrap for swimming sometimes. I wear the stealth belt out in public sometimes. It's kind of interchangeable. And another thing that I use a lot is I can't wear belts anymore, like when I wear jeans. So I use this thing called a belt bro. And what it is it takes basically two of your, it takes two belt loops and it basically pulls it together like this on the side. And so it acts as a belt on the side. And that has been tremendous help because I used to get uncomfortable and be like, oh, I can't sit down and you can't stand forever, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a really good idea. And that would also come in handy for somebody. I've had people ask me, well, my ostomy is so low, or oh, my ostomy is so high. And so that might be something where if you are an ostomate who you're feeling like you can't wear a belt, but you want your pants not to fall down. I'm glad you mentioned swimming too, because I grabbed it right before we started the webinar. There are swimsuits that are specifically made for ostomates. This one, we'll get links and photos for all of this. I don't have the name of it right yet, but it has, not only does it have a pouch inside for your ostomy bag to go through, it has a little opening so you can literally empty your bag with your swimsuit still on. And as a mom who goes to a water park with two young girls, I have two kids too. I don't know if I mentioned my kids, but I have two little girls too. And it's nice to be able to do that quickly without having to pull my whole swimsuit down.
Absolutely. There's also for men, there's I believe it's Ostomy Secrets, the one who makes this wrap. They also have a swimsuit for men as well. It's generally, I didn't buy one with my colostomy because my colostomy is actually like 3 inches up and 3 inches to my left of my belly button. But I did have one when I had my ileostomy because it was below, and it's perfect. It's just like you said, there's a pouch to put your pouch, or there's a pouch for your bag.
Yeah.
And it's
a bag for the pouch, for the bag for the pouch. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And
it's nice too that it keeps it separate from the skin, just as a personal preference as an ostomy. It sometimes when you're swimming, especially, that's kind of a weird feeling for me for the bag to be pressed right up against my skin. So I also like that for that reason, which also leads into the confidence. Again, feeling comfortable. When you said that, I feel secure. I think that same thing when I wear my bike shorts. I feel secure. My bag's close to me. I think maybe it's something that's left over from post-surgery, but I always wanted everything to be really tight and secure and close after I had my surgery. I didn't want my bag swinging everywhere. That was an uncomfortable feeling for me. So that gives me confidence when I have my bag secure to me.
Absolutely. And with swimming, they sell these C strips, and there's several companies that make them. I'll use those when I swim because I've never had an issue where it's fallen off, minus one product that I switched quickly, and that's just because they're adhesive. It didn't work for me. It works for a lot of people though, because it swells. That's I won't name the company or anything because everyone has different experiences. But I also use just the C strips. I use 2 of them, so it makes a full circle around it, and so it's just like an extra thick layer of protection. Mine, and so I change mine as needed, so it's not as bad because I'll change some days 0 times, usually about an average about once a day, sometimes 3 times a day. It just depends on how much I decide to eat.
And that just goes to show you how different ostomies are between the two, because mine is like just the inverse. I change usually every 3rd day my entire system. But sometimes if I swim, I like to change it right away just so that it's, again, personal preference. Like you said, everybody, you will quickly realize what makes you feel comfortable and what doesn't. Honor that, and there's no right way to do it.
Right, exactly. And don't forget if you do swim, don't forget the little filter covers. If you have filters, they tend to help a lot, because then if that filter gets wet, then it becomes a balloon. And anytime you have gas,
and that's not fun.
No.
Floating around in the pool.
Right. It's built-in safety device.
Thank you both so much for really going in depth about that. And as far as just kind of from here, some other questions that we got, and this is for Dr. Wookey. One of the questions is, what's the best diet for someone with a permanent ostomy?
So I think, there isn't just one best diet for anybody. It really kind of depends upon what issues a person is having with their ostomy. Also kind of how close they are to the surgery themselves. So typically, after surgery, the body is still getting used to having the ostomy and not having the rest of the intestines. And so we typically say, start with low fiber, low fat diets, avoid lots of foods that are high in sugar, spicy foods, really foods that can cause a lot of diarrhea, we say to avoid. We also would recommend, making sure you're getting lots of fluid and hydration, because that can sometimes be one of the issues right after surgery is dehydration. Because colostomies, the stool is more solid, but it's still kind of an adjustment for the body to get used to that and kind of reabsorbing all the water. Ileostomies in particular can have more risk of dehydration and even kind of have some issues with losing, potassium and things like that too. So the location of the ostomy really matters too. Some things that for people that are having issues with a lot of diarrhea, there are certain foods that can help kind of bulk up the stool. So like bananas, applesauce, or even like banana flakes are really good at kind of bulking up that stool. Fiber sometimes can be helpful if you're far enough out from the surgery, as long as you make sure to get like soluble fiber. So like Metamucil, for example, because there are other fibers that actually can work against you. So that soluble fiber is really kind of important to really help reduce some of that diarrhea that can happen after surgery. And then we say kind of, for several weeks after surgery, kind of have that, low fiber, low residual diet, but then you can start reintroducing foods that you used to like before, and just kind of slowly introduce and kind of see how your body really manages it.
Great. Thank you so much. And yeah, Jason, Amy, are there any favorite foods of yours?
I was definitely going to say is test the waters. Like Dr. Wookey said, within like about 5 weeks of surgery, I stuck with that low fiber, low residue. As much as you want to jump back into a salad or whatnot. With the colostomy, I've had a lot of luck reintroducing everything over time. It wasn't right away. I tested like tree nuts again, because it sometimes those can cause backups. I tend to go on more of the clogged side, constipated side, than I do the diarrhea side of stuff. And so the hydrating is important. I drink a lot of water, but I also do like, what do they call, like drip drop, liquid IVs, stuff like that. And then if I feel like I can feel it, especially since I have been reconnected where I had my prior ileostomy, I can feel like certain foods, like especially like mushrooms, tend to stick to the adhesions quite a bit. And so if I start to feel that kind of pain there, I take it's a supplement, it's a magnesium supplement called Calm. And it's magnesium citrates that's converted from magnesium calcium, but it's a lot easier than what you traditionally think as mag citrate, which is the just boom kablooey. It's and start small, and don't, what am I trying to say? Don't compact yourself to where you're eating the same thing that's not working for you over and over and over. Kind of let up if you can on that stuff, because I've noticed that giving your body and your bowels a chance to regain its natural motility is really, really important, because otherwise you can feel it sometimes if it's not going.
Agreed. I'm notoriously defiant, so I eat everything. I've just introduced it in small quantities and with a lot of liquids, but I eat popcorn, I eat almonds, I eat pistachios. Do I notice when I eat these things? Yes, I do. But knock on wood, I have not had any blockages because of that. But I introduce them slowly, a little at a time, make sure they work for my body, ingest a lot of liquid. And the most important thing that I can pass to any ostomy, and I didn't want this to end before we said it, is chew your food like you're chewing up enough to give it to a baby. It is one of the best things you can do for your digestive system after getting an ostomy is to chew that food. It'll help you all the way through. It's something I stick to. Also, lots of water. Yeah, lots of drinking water, especially with ileostomy. I have to almost combat the dehydration.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've also noticed for me personally, like probiotics, it's food, not necessarily a pill or whatever. I mean, those can help, but like kombucha, Greek yogurt, anything with probiotics in it have been good. But be careful, I mean, of stuff like kimchi, because it's cabbage and that can slow things down. So it's just a lot of testing the waters for knowing yourself. For the longest time, I couldn't do spicy foods. And now I love them again, but it took me a while to get back into that. And the bonus now is it only burns once. So.
That was a good joke.
Thank you so much. And Jason, you touched on this a little bit, but Dr. Wookey, any other follow-up on this question that we had, which was also a question that we got before the discussion, is anything that can help with managing gas?
Yeah, so a lot of what can manage gas is taking note kind of those foods that are problems that can cause gas. We say kind of avoid like foods like carbonated beverages because they can introduce a lot of air, avoiding kind of chewing gum, avoiding straws, even smoking can really increase the air that gets into your intestines. And so trying to avoid that. Really kind of raw fruits and vegetables can also sometimes cause a lot of gas too. Some of the over-the-counter like Gas X are some of the things that we also recommend to help combat the gas. And then something to kind of to note too that can be hard if you're trying to figure out what foods are really kind of causing the gas is there can actually be a little bit of a lag time. So the ileostomy, there can be from when you eat to when you actually have that gas, it can be like 2 to 4 hours. Even longer for if you have the colostomy. And so that's something to be aware of is there can be some of that lag time. So it can be hard to identify the foods that are really kind of causing that gas. Or under kind of the skincare. So really just be gentle. You really don't need like harsh cleaners or anything like that. So using like just water or a gentle soap kind of is really the most that you really need. You don't really need like rubbing alcohol or anything like that because that can really irritate the skin. Sometimes there are barrier powders and things that you can use if you have irritation, but some people can also have allergies to the adhesive or even get like fungal infections. So it's really important that you also kind of like show your doctor or your nurse what's going on so that they can really get the right powder that's helpful for you if you're having a lot of issues with skin. Also finding appliances that are fit well and kind of work with your body are really important to help minimize the irritation of the skin.
And we have another question too. Are all of your supplies covered by insurance or are some out-of-pocket expenses?
I think my answer might be more relevant to because you mentioned the VA before, but a majority of my supplies are covered, but no, I do have out-of-pocket costs with every order.
Yeah, I used to be under my works insurance, and usually I'd hit my deductible by about February until I started going off of treatments and stuff. And so they were kind of covered in a way, but I did have monthly costs and they can get kind of expensive. Last August, though, I was service connected for my cancer with my military service. And since that happened, I get everything through the VA. And they've actually been very, very good. They let me pick what supplies I want. And so it's been a huge relief for me personally for that. So that's
well, I know that there are people who have to pay out of pocket for their ostomy expenses, totally out of pocket. So I'm very grateful for the coverage that I have. But it is definitely something that there is a financial burden that a lot of us have. And if it's not with the ostomy supplies themselves, it can come from doctor's visits, traveling to and from depending on where you're at. So there are financial burdens that come with it.
And there are ways to mitigate that too. Like some people, like if you get one of these, like a 2-piece system, and say you want to go through these bags, they have things like these liners to where you can buy these for like, I think it's like 10, 20 bucks for a pack of how many of these, 100 liners. And they go on the inside, and then you put it over it. And when you're done, you slide it out, and it makes it to where this hasn't been touched by any stool or anything.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of those. So thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, so there's ways to mitigate it, because of course people that go through this have to come out of pocket a lot of the times. I did for a long time myself, and so there's products out there for ways to extend your money's worth on them. So
which would also add to that feeling positive about your ostomy experience if it's not costing you, an arm and a leg just to live.
Thank you both. For our last question, Dr. Wookey, I think you could answer this. What are the chances of an abdominal infection from a reversal?
That's a tough question to answer because it depends on a lot of different things. Definitely kind of what's going on at that current time, the reason for the ostomies, if patients have had recent chemo or other recent infections. So that's really a hard question to answer. And that would be more something that the surgeons and the doctors that are taking care of the actual patient could give a better guidance for that question, because there are lots of different factors that could increase the chances for an infection.
Thank you. And now as we wrap up our discussion, I leave it to the three of you if there's anything else you think is important to add or bring up.
Sure. One thing I think that within our outline that we kind of missed earlier was how to help with leaks and stuff like that. That was a big problem for me when I had my ileostomy. And one of the things I did was, they have the rings that a lot of people use. Fitting them as close as you can to your stoma is always helpful. But then there's one, I believe it's Coloplast. They have something called a protective ring, and it's not just a barrier ring. And that was really good. It kind of binds to your skin a lot better. And I didn't have.
Is it like the paste?
It's a ring, but once you put it on, it almost like dissolves onto the adhesive of the flange and also to your skin. And so you do have to get some of the alcohol or adhesive remover to remove them, but they tend to just it's a really good bond. And I know what you're talking about. You're talking about this stuff, the ostomy.
Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of it because it's kind of messy.
It is. It smells like rubber cement that you're putting on yourself. And if you have like an uneven stomach, it can help a lot with that. But it's not a way if you have like general leaking, it's not the best. But if you have like a very specific fold, you can use it as kind of like a bridge between that. Yeah. And one of these companies, Combatech, so they have let me show you here. They have this one called, it's their Natura line.
That was my old bag, and
Yes.
It's a great bag. I'm a believer in the moldable technology. They just didn't make a small enough opening
yours.
once
Yeah.
I healed. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it comes like this, and you kind of warm it up with your fingers and you mold it to it. And it's almost like a pre-cut. And that's another thing that can really help with leaks too, is getting a pre-cut bags and not cutting them yourselves. Because if it's right around the size of your stoma, it won't, like the edges won't cut your stoma from you cutting it and not being perfect. And it creates such a much better seal, I've noticed as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's great information. And just also thank you to the three of you, Jason, Amy, and Dr. Wookey. I think this was a great discussion. And also thank you to those who were part of this discussion. We are hoping to do more discussions like this where we can hear from experiences and also, consider maybe even from what we don't know from experts and other patients. So thank you so much. And on that note too, we also encourage you to sign up at thepatientstory.com. We will have the latest medical updates along with cancer patient stories. And also thank you again to Colontown for collaborating with us. Just thank you so much to everyone who joined us tonight.